Well, here we are, episode 2.
Episode 2.
I'm surprised we made it this far.
It should not be acting training, it should be actor training.
Am I a good actor?
Like me doing...
It's not a Meisner Podcast.
There it is.
I thought after one, certainly people would have called the authorities. The acting police, the theater gendarme.
Yeah, this Kittle guy's really phoning it in.
Yeah.
What's he paid?
There's these two guys talking about acting, and it's a little sus. And I think they don't know what they're talking about.
Keeping up with the lingo.
I'm hip.
Yeah.
I'm hip. I know the lingo of the youth. Anyway,
I don't even know the...
Yeah. Well, here we are, episode 2
Yep.
of It's Not a Meisner Podcast.
What are we talking about today, Kevin?
Well, Carson, we don't sound like we're from the same place.
No. Different place.
Different dialects. Well, let's do a quick recap. Last episode, we talked about, we took apart Meisner's definition. If you have not listened to episode 1, I suggest you go do it now. Turn this off, go listen to episode 1, and then come back.
Yeah.
We'll still be here.
It's good to start from the beginning.
Right. So the reason I wanted to bring up that we talked about the definition last week, because very important to the definition is that you bring truth to it, that you bring your truth to it, right? Living truthfully. I'm sorry, I have my allergies.
We'll edit that out.
We'll edit that out.
No, we won't.
No, we won't. I'm drinking my throat coat tea, and it's doing no good.
Now we can do ASMR.
But we figured if you're going to bring your sense of truth to it, then it's very important that we all recognize what truth is and what do we mean by truth. And to us, truth is bringing your unbridled self, your kind of primal self, your undefended self, and your unsocialized self. People don't know what their own personal truth is. And what we have here, Carson is going to read this wonderful paragraph from Konstantin Stanislavski. And after he reads it, we'll take that apart.
You want to give some insight on who that Stanislavski guy is?
Of course,
You better that I didn't know.
Stanislavski guy. If there are any young people out there who have not yet encountered, Konstantin Stanislavski was a Russian guy, lived in the latter part of the 1800s and the early part of the 1900s. Formed with Nemirovich Danchenko the Moscow Art Theater. They formed the theater so that they could apply their understanding of what simple, authentic, truthful acting is for their time. They are known for doing Anton Chekhov's plays. And a very quick idea of how they worked. Anton Chekhov's play, The Seagull, was actually debuted in a different theater and got a terrible response, and everybody hated it. But it's because those actors and director did not understand what Chekhov was writing. Chekhov was writing about what the characters were experiencing, but not necessarily saying. It was about the kind of tortured inner lives that they had, and yet they were very feckless, and they were just trying to get along, and not reveal how they really feel. Well, the Alexandrinsky company, I'm probably saying that wrong. The company that did it didn't understand, so they just kind of played the text. If you do that, it sounds like a bunch of people just talking, about nothing. So Stanislavski, of course, understood this notion of subtext. And so the Moscow Art Theater was known for ridiculously particular and specific details to what we recognize as real life. In fact, Stanislavski was also kind of obsessed with sound, like the sound. And so he would have cicadas and, so it sounded like they were outdoors. And Chekhov once said, I'm going to write a play where the first line is, "Isn't it a wonderful, peaceful night? Not a single cricket, to be heard, just so Stanislavski wouldn't try to put sound effects in. So that's Stanislavski. As an actor and teacher, he developed what he called his system, which is what we now call contemporary American realism. The method, what people sometimes call the method, derives from that. But so do Stella Adler and Sanford Meisner. And Bobby Lewis, right? All of these people were reading Stanislavski and interpreting it as how can the actor find their way in and live through what the character living through by identifying the analogous situation that the actor can recognize. And then that way the actor's having a genuine experience on stage, right? And we recognize it as the difference between an actor who's projecting an idea of a performance versus somebody who's genuinely living through something. Most of it's cause and effect stuff, and that's why we'll get to this later, that the sort of standard exercise in Meisner is repetition, because it makes you listen to your partner.
Right.
You have to listen, and if you're listening, then you're in the present moment. You can't get ahead of yourself. And so when you respond to your partner from unanticipated moment to unanticipated moment, as Bill Esper used to say to us, you're getting a good head start on realism, on naturalism. So, but so this comes from, I want to say it comes from an actor prepares. I'm not 100% sure, but this,
because he had 3 books.
yeah. So Carson will read this, and we'll put the text up on the screen.
Yeah.
I think, so that people...
And if not, I'll post it on our Instagram, and you can check it out there.
So you can read along with it. I think that's important. Okay, hit us.
Artistic Truth and Natural Beauty by Konstantin Stanislavski. Truth on stage is not the small external truth which leads to naturalism. It is what you can sincerely believe in. Even an untruth must become a truth in the eyes of the actor and the spectator in order to be artistic. The secret of art is that it converts a fiction into a beautiful artistic truth. From the moment when the actor and the spectator come to doubt the reality of the actor's life in the play, truth vanishes, and with it, emotion and art. They are replaced by pretense, theatrical falseness, imitation, routine, acting. Nature and truth are indivisible. Natural beauty is the true friend of our being. Beauty cannot be fabricated. It is. It exists in nature and all around and in each of us. There is no greater beauty in the world than nature itself. One must know how to look at and see beauty. One must learn how to carry beauty over from life and nature onto the stage without crushing or mangling it.
Holy shit.
I think he knew a little bit.
Huh?
He may have knew a thing.
He may have thought this stuff through a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy stuff.
It is. It's so extraordinary.
And I don't know if I would have understood that, to be honest with you, when I was initially starting out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
And that's a pretty big.
Well, yeah. I wonder if it took him time to come to it himself.
Had to.
Yeah.
I
think a number of things stand out to me. The most amazing thing that stands out is this interest in beauty. People who don't understand acting, young people particularly, they think it's got to be this intense sort of, rip your soul out. Like, what is acting? Well, you bleed, you have to sweat your blood and rip your soul out. And here's Stanislavski going, no, it's about being beauty, the beauty of nature to the stage. Now, the truth is, something can be beautiful in its ugliness, right? Something can be so purely ugly that it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what he's saying. So we don't want to put ugliness on stage, even if the thing itself is ugly or what we consider to be ugly. So let's take this apart. I'm interested in 2 parts of this. The first part seems to be speaking about faith. We talked last week about faith, actors' faith. Faith is a really important thing. The actor has to believe in what they're doing, right? And that's how the audience does. So Carson read this. From the moment when the actor and the spectator come to doubt the reality of the actor's life in the play, truth vanishes, and with it, art. And they're replaced by pretense, theatrical falseness, imitation, and routine acting. Yikes. So basically what he's saying is that the actor has to believe in all of the details of the world of the play. They have to find their way in and live it moment to moment, truthfully. That's how the audience gets engaged in the truth of everything that's going on there. So here's another extraordinary thing, right? Even an untruth must become a truth in the eyes of the actor and the spectator in order to be artistic. An untruth must become a truth. I think what he means there is something that's not real.
Right.
Has to be true, right? We delineate between reality and truth. We'll talk about this further down. Young actors will say to me, like, isn't acting replicating real life on stage? I go, why the hell would you want to do that? Because real life is bullshit.
Well, and plays aren't written about, everyday civilian circumstances.
Of course.
People in extraordinary
circumstances. They may be ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, but who the hell wants to follow real life, right? So that way, when young students say to me, I'm bringing my real self to this work, I'm like, yeah, but you're full of shit in your real life, and now you're full of shit here.
Right.
So we'll talk about that down the line. So when he says that an untruth must become a truth, I think he means even though it's not real, it's a play, and it was crafted by a playwright who cherry-picked, who picked and chose, what goes in the play, because all art is selection and arrangement, right? You select what goes in there and you arrange how it's in there. So it's a quote-unquote untruth, but the actor has to make it a truth. And then that way, everyone in the room, and by the room I mean the building, the theater, right? Everybody believes in it. But here's the part of this that I really wanted to take apart. Nature and truth are indivisible. That's unbelievable. What does indivisible mean, Carson?
I don't know.
What?
No, you can't separate it.
You can't divide it, yeah.
I think it's funny because Kevin always talks about how sometimes he's late because he's watching a squirrel.
Why did you have to out me with it?
But I think that speaks to what that means.
That's terrible. No, that is true.
Because they're completely true.
No, I will.
And they're not lying.
They're fascinating. I will come. Sometimes I would come late. When I taught at Rutgers, you would cross over a bridge from one building to my acting class. And when I crossed the bridge, we were eye level with the top of the trees that were planted below. They weren't planted. They grew from down below the ravine. So I had birds, eye level view of these squirrels. And I would say, sorry, I'm late. There was a squirrel. And they'd be like, what? Yeah. So we're talking about what Stanislavski does in the second part of this paragraph. Nature and truth are indivisible. They cannot be divided. And what he's saying is if something is natural, then it is pure, right? Something that is of the earth or of nature, it's 100% the thing that it is. It's unadulterated. That hasn't been fucked with yet. It's pure. So nature and truth are indivisible. If it's natural, then it's pure. And if it's pure, then it's true. Then he goes a step further and says, if it's true, then it's beautiful. Because if it's true, it's pure. And if it's pure, it's beautiful. And our job is to put that on stage. That's what art does. It takes... We have to recognize beauty, and we also have to find a way to put it on stage. But really, the only thing we have to do to put beauty on stage is for us to be authentically ourselves, and that in and of itself is beautiful,
Yeah.
So let's look at it this way. Whenever I talk to my students about nature, I'll say to them, name some things in nature. So let's do it. Name some things in nature.
A squirrel.
A squirrel.
A tree.
A tree.
The sun.
The sun.
Yeah.
A stream.
Yeah.
A river, etc.
Grass.
Grass.
All sorts of stuff.
Right. but not a building,
No.
right? Not a concrete street, right? He says beauty cannot be fabricated. It is.
Right.
And the second you try to build something, that's it's second. It started out as a beautiful a road that was just itself, a dirt road. Then you pave it. You're trying to control. You're trying to curate that road and how it goes.
But what did we leave out of the list?
What did we leave out of the list of nature? Well, we didn't say animals, did we? Right? People go, a moose, a dog, or whatever. So then my students go down a long list of animals, and they never say people.
Yeah.
It never occurs to them to say humans, us.
I didn't say that, and it asked me the first time.
It takes forever. Right? But then I'll say, well, why don't we think that? Why don't we think that humans are nature? Humans are animals and animals are of nature. And it's because of that damn Rene Descartes. That son of a bitch.
You blame it all on Descartes.
I think, therefore I am.
I blame it all on Kurt Cobain.
Why? What did he say?
I don't know.
Oh, you're just looking for something. I thought you were going to outdo Rene Descartes.
No.
Come as you are. That's
Yeah.
Kurt Cobain. That sounds to me like he understood
A little bit.
Stanislavski.
So further on Descartes.
Well, I think, therefore I am. It's a Western.
Yeah.
It's the most Western,
Separates you from...
oh my God. What separates me from the animals? Reason, rationality, logic, all the things that are anathema to art.
It's interesting because I think the thing that connects us to animals is desire, right? And that's what nearly all plays are about, some form of desire.
I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the difference. Animals don't know that they desire. They hunger and they go for the thing.
Right.
Humans know they desire and then they scheme and plot to get it. The second you do that.
Which is the reason. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we bypass experience. We bypass the senses. Instead of just simply taking in through the five senses, we go, never mind that. I see what I want. I'm going to go for it. So, like, who the hell are we to think that just because we think we're better than all of nature? Or we stand over here and nature's over there, and then we use nature. Like, we'll cut a tree down to build our house. We'll kill an animal to eat it, We'll domesticate an animal in order to have it in our house and to have it take care of us, So what I'll say to my students is, when do you stop being the animal that you were born to be? Usually around 3. It's around the time they start schooling you. 3 or 4, they start telling you how to be. Don't touch that. Don't, parents will say to their kids, it's not polite to stare. But kids are not staring. By the way, I'm the guy in the airplane, always, there's a kid in front of me, always, who turns around in their seat and comes up on the back of their seat and looks at me.
Yeah.
And then you see an arm come up and take the kid and pull him back down. Don't stare at strangers. It's not polite to stare. But I didn't feel that kid was staring at me. I felt that kid was taking me in. Like that kid was communing with me. That kid was like, you're you and I'm me. And how are you different from me? They're receiving you.
And that's what the first parts of the Meisner training are trying to bring you back to.
100%. Leave yourself alone. Let another person in. Let them happen to you and respond to how you're being treated. Right? So, and that brings us to experience, what you and I say about experience. When a little kid goes toddling toward the oven, a hot oven, and they're getting closer and closer, and the mother screams, don't touch that. What did you learn? You learn that when you get close to the oven, your mother yells at you. But you didn't learn what hot is. The only way to know what hot is to touch hot. Now, are we suggesting that moms should sit there and watch their kid? Go ahead, touch that oven, see what happens. Oh, you learned, did you? No, of course you have to keep your kids safe, But the truth is, That kid only learned vicariously what hot is. Their mother told them what hot is, but
Right.
they don't really know. So, of course, we have to be safe. But what happens eventually is we stop being adventurous. Adventuresome? I'm not sure. We stop, our curiosity dies. We stop,
Rule following.
we start rule following. We stop letting things happen to us. We go, oh, I remember the last time that happened to me. Someone yelled at me, and so I shut it down, So what we're looking for is to help, what the Meisner technique is looking for very early on, is to help the actors return to first and foremost recognize how they're being defended, and also to recognize how they are socialized. When someone steps on your foot on the subway and you go, oh, sorry, like you apologize to that. That's
Your foot being.
Yes, sorry, my foot got under your big clodhopper. You stepped on me, But your first response maybe is like, wow, watch it, But instead you go, oh, sorry, you're polite.
Yeah.
My teacher Maggie used to say, ladies and gentlemen, do not make good actors. That was one of the first lessons I learned. I was like, oh, right, we're apologizing before the thing is even,
And
Sure.
that's the whole point of the first year Meisner, is to have like you say, a point of view about everything under the sun.
And to not apologize for it.
Yeah.
Lloyd Williamson developed a movement technique that lines up with the Meisner technique. And he used to have a phrase, I have no apologies. That's a hell of a thing to say. He used to let us in the movement room just release, I have no, imagine, I have no apologies. When I first started training, I don't think I ever told you this, I had a huge apology, like someone that I knew, I don't want to bring down this podcast, but a young person that I knew, because I used to teach 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, committed suicide, to be perfectly frank. She was 13, and it devastated me, and I wasn't there. Like, she always would talk to me and call me when something was up. In fact, only a few weeks before, she had called me, and we would talk all the time. And so I always say to her, look, you can always call me. She didn't call me, and she went out a window. I'm sorry to bring this up, but I had a big apology because I was in Chicago at the time, I can't remember, some work-related thing in Chicago, and I got a phone call in my hotel room in Chicago. And so I had this unbelievable apology, this guilt. So here I was at Rutgers going, I have no apology. It stuck in my throat. I couldn't say it, And so then eventually I had to kind of make peace with that fact. And the other thing that Lloyd would have us say is, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. But you have to say it like that. There have to be 5 of them. And you have to say it like that because there's a mantra to it.
Right.
It's all right, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. It's all right to be where you are, to be present in present time. You would say something?
No.
I thought.
I just think that all that, I'm just thinking as a young listener, that's not taught to you really anywhere.
No.
In school.
Oh, no.
Not at home or at sports or practice or whatnot. And it's kind of a foreign concept to say, I'm going to go be an actor. And then you go and study, and it's all about kind of finding this complete abandon, for your work. And it kind of feels like you're not working, you're not memorizing any lines, not highlighting any script, but it's important to do that.
No.
And that's what makes great actors. That's what makes Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
What makes Viola Davis.
This complete unself-conscious and this permission to respond impulsively in the moment. Maggie used to say actors respond in the moment and clean up the mess later. And that was also huge for me too, because I realized I was cleaning up the mess as I was making it.
It's that Merce Cunningham. You can't create and edit at the same time.
Yeah,
quote.
Absolutely. So you have to just let it all fly and then look back at it later and go, well, for the purpose of art, I have to shape that.
Yeah.
Right. Art isn't just getting up in front of people, and there has to be technique to it. But the first year of Meisner is developing the actor.
Yeah.
Right. I said to you last time we talked, I think you even dropped it in our Instagram page. I think that the first year of any acting technique should be actor training, not acting training. Yeah. You're not learning how to act. You're learning about yourself.
Right.
As the instrument that's going to. Because second year Meisner is when you learn how to act.
Yeah.
You learn that. But there is a lot in there is a ton of form in the first year. So I don't want anybody listening to this to get us wrong. We are not saying that the first year of Meisner is just running around throwing yourself against the wall,
Right.
and expressing yourself. It's not. There's a ton of form. You learn how to craft an activity. There's a ton of form there.
Right. You have to know what you want to say as any artist.
Yes.
And you have to cultivate, like I said, that sense of abandon in order to ever get to that point.
That's right. Not only what you want to say, but how you're going to say it.
Yeah.
But before you learn how you're going to say it, you got to go, well, what the hell is it?
Yeah.
And how come I keep stopping? Why do I keep self-censoring,
Yeah.
I think about going back to nature. I think about that stream. Like, let's say there's a mountain stream and you walk up the mountain and you follow the stream and you find its source. You find in the mountain literally where that pure fresh water is coming out of the earth. And then you stick your finger in it. The second you pour a Coke into it, you open a Pepsi and you pour it. The second you do that.
I do that often.
Do you? You climb up a mountain and pour Pepsi into it?
Yeah. I always have a spare can of Pepsi.
Yeah, but a man has to have a hobby. I think that's good. But you get what I'm saying? Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic because you've spoiled it. You've contaminated it. It is no longer pure. It is no longer unadulterated. We want you as an actor to be that stream. We want you to be the source where where the water comes out, pure. And what we're really saying there is to go back to your childlike self. When were you pure and just responding in the moment and not thinking about the consequences of it, et cetera, et cetera. When you were 2, 3, 4 years old, the second they start schooling you. My wife and I once were in this supermarket and we turned the corner in the cereal aisle. There was a kid laying on the ground, just screaming and kicking his leg, like his mom wouldn't let him buy Cocoa Puffs or some shit, And he was just like, just screaming in the aisle. And my wife looked at him and then at me and she went, "Don't you wish you could? Like, don't you wish you could just throw yourself, like you go to buy a car and it's not the one you want. Yeah, I want that other car. You throw yourself in the crowd, Right. It's not, the problem is I do kind of behave like that, which is why I'm not allowed out in public. My wife always says to me, "You're not allowed to go to the bank anymore." Because I used to try to reach through, that little hole where you put the check and they give you the money. I used to try to reach through the hole and strangle the teller, She'd be like, "You're not allowed to go there anymore."
I'd probably turn the podcast off.
Right around now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you think this will be...
Like, maybe I shouldn't learn acting from this guy.
Yeah, maybe we should edit all of this. None of this will make it to air. But, I do have a bit of a habit of responding in the moment. When you do that out in the real world, it's not a good idea. Right? We'll talk about that in future episodes. How do you live your outside life outside, but then come into the art room, the creative room, and go, I don't have to bring my pedestrian, conventional, real life, mundane self into this room.
Yeah. We call it leave it at the door.
Leave it at the door. I had a few students once who just took it upon, I didn't teach them this, they took it upon themselves. They literally would sort of take off an imaginary cloak and hang it up on an imaginary hook outside the door before they came in. But you know what I do tell my students is put an imaginary line on the floor that is the doorway, and recognize when you step over it. You're coming from outside, and you step into the room where it's okay to respond from your genuine self, and it's also the place where you can trust that the other people in the room, they got you.
Absolutely.
If I usually say our students are the ones that walk to the edge of a cliff. I have a lot of people, actors, go, "Boy, we're brave. We walk right to the edge of that cliff." I'm like, my students walk to the edge of the cliff, then they take another step. And then they're free falling, and they go, "Gee, I hope there's a fucking net down there or something. Maybe a lake I could fall into, They're free falling.
What does that mean? In terms of what? Like for someone who...
Do you mean what the free fall is?
Yeah.
Trusting that if you take a step and fall, the experience of falling is what you want, but your form, your technique is the net.
Yeah.
You will be caught. You will be safe. The word safe is all weird these days, but you know what I mean. We'll talk about that. All these young people going around, I feel unsafe. No, you feel uncomfortable, but you are safe. We'll talk about that. So there are two things that are your net. One is your technique, and the other is your partner, the other actors. So I can really release into you because you're doing the same with me.
Right.
And I got you and you got me.
Right.
So I'm not going to release into you, and then later you're going to be like, that was mean when you said that to me. You would say to me, oh my God, when you said that to me, I wanted to kill you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You really brought me out. I was really alive. I'm still shaking and tingling, And then we go out to lunch, and it's over.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything else about that?
I don't think so.
No, I think...
I just think that this is a great time to talk about our guests.
Yes, it actually is a great time to talk about our guest, because nobody that I know, and I know quite a few actors, but nobody more than him responds in the impulsive moment from their primal self with no apologies, but does it with an impeccable form. And I'm talking about my former student and good friend, Tom Pelfrey. We have an interview with him right after this conversation. He will talk to us about his experience with how he reckons with the no apologies idea, trusting that this is my experience and I don't really care how anybody responds to it,
Well, everyone, that's the end of part 1 of this episode of It's Not a Meisner Podcast. Our conversation with the peerless Tom Pelfrey will be released as part 2 next Thursday. Stay tuned. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Meisner Podcast.